Hello, everybody. My name is Aniat, and today I'll be covering the problem number 3, CSM Bank, from week 6, asymptotics and disjoint sets. As you may have noticed, I've already marked the parts of the prompt that are the most important for solving this problem. So we'll focus on those lines a bit more than the others. The CSM content mentors have opened a bank called CSM Bank, and the bank keeps track of 10 customers, where each customer is represented by a number from 0 to 9 inclusive. A bank customer can either deposit some amount into their account or withdraw some amount from their account using their account number. So with the color pink, I've noted the two functions that we need to implement for this problem. Next, we need to comply with some UC Berkeley regulations, and CSM Bank needs our help for doing so. A customer cannot withdraw money from the bank if it causes their account to be negative. And we also like to make sure arguments to deposit and withdraw are valid. So with the yellow color, mark the exceptions that we are responsible for. We need to implement exceptions by using two mentioned below. So the first one of two is a legal argument exception, when the method parameter is a bad input. So this usually happens when, for example, our method signature is an integer, but we're trying to pass in a float or a string. And index out of bound exception, I'm sure, is very popular. At least it was for me. So you can see index out of bounds exception when you're trying to access an element at the index that doesn't exist in our array list or other data structure. Now, since we've covered the prompt, we can start solving the problem. I'll write down the solution on the right side of the page with the blue color. So the first part of the problem is, of course, creating a class bank. And for now, to make it a bit easier, I'll just write down the definition for a class. So every class in Java, of course, needs a constructor. So let's just create a constructor somewhere in the middle. Why? Because I want to leave some room for the arguments that our constructor might use here on the top. So the problem mentions that we need to keep track of 10 customers, where each customer is represented from a number from 0 to 9. And these accounts can have money in them, of course. Therefore, first things first, we need to create an array that takes in a double with the name accounts. The next thing that we need to create is the total amount of money that we have in all accounts combined. Or you can also say in the bank. So, of course, at the start, there is no money deposited to our bank. Therefore, total money double is going to be equal to 0. And how do we create an integer array of size 10? I'm pretty sure it's pretty simple. We can do it one of two ways. So the first way is just like saying 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 9 times. But you can also, not 9 times, but 10 times. But you can also just do it this way. Say 0 and multiply it by 10. So whatever works for you, you can use that. Both are completely fine. But to make it a bit easier to understand for students, I'll write it down the first way. So, of course, keep in mind that there are 10 elements. The next two functions, of course, are going to be named withdraw and deposit. So let's just define them for now. So we're going to create a function called deposit, which will have some definition. And also the second one will be withdraw. I didn't define them like thoroughly because on this page I just don't have enough space. So let's create a new page where I'll be able to cover them more thoroughly. First function that I will cover is going to be deposit. So deposit is going to take in an account number, of course, because we can't, like if somebody deposits, they must be depositing into their own account. So we must keep track of that. So int account number is going to be our first argument. And the second argument is, of course, the amount that we want to put into our account. Since now we have defined the signature of our function, let's start by writing down its code. So there is one limit for account number. So account number cannot be an invalid number. And in this case, it was mentioned that there are only 10 accounts. So if the account number is larger than not 10, but 9, since we start indexing from 0, we need to throw an index out of bound exception. But it also cannot be a negative number. Therefore, there are two cases that we need to take care of. And our account number is more than 9, but less than 0 also is not good. Also, the prompt asks us to throw an exception and write down an informative error message for it. There are two types of exceptions that we can use for this problem, and one is out of bounds, and the second one is illegal argument. In this case, it's pretty intuitional that index out of bounds is the one that we're looking for. So let's throw an exception. Index out of bounds. And here you can enter the message that you want to output. And let's write down something simple, such as please enter a valid account number. So I hope that it was pretty straightforward. So since now we've checked the validity of the account number, we need to check that our amount is also valid. So you can't deposit a negative number of dollars to your account. Therefore, you need to take care only of that possibility. How do you do so? Of course, by using an if condition. So let's create another if condition right below. So if our amount is less or equal to 0, mm, you need to throw an exception. But which type of exception you should use? Since we're not accessing invalid element in our array, there is only one possible exception that you can use. Of course, it's illegal argument. Since one of the arguments that we're passing in to our method is invalid. So illegal argument exception, let me shorten it a bit, is going to have the following message. Please enter a positive amount to deposit. And of course, your students can have their own error messages. This is just an example. Last things, one of the last things that you shouldn't forget is, of course, increasing the total money by amount if everything went fine, and also increase the account number by the same amount. And we need to return accounts account number. I hope that this function wasn't too hard. And the second function will be very similar to that. So let's write the definition for public double withdraw. So the first first variable that we pass into our function is, of course, account number. After account number, we also withdraw this amount from our account. So let's copy the same checks as we did here. Since you can't withdraw a negative amount and the account number cannot be less than 0 and more than 1, more than 9, I meant. So let's copy this. And paste it here. Next thing that we need to check is if our amount is actually more than what we have in our current account. That means that our argument is also invalid. So we need to throw new illegal argument exception with a message that can look like you do not have enough necessary funds to make a withdrawal. And just like we did in our last problem, we need to this time decrement the total money by amount and decrease the amount from our accounts array. And return account number. Therefore, by using this line, we return the current number of dollars we have in our account. So we've defined both of the functions, deposit and withdraw, and they have very similar implementations. Only difference is that in withdraw function, we also need to take care of one more possibility, which is if our amount is more than what we can withdraw. In this case, we need to throw a new exception. And yeah, overall, those two methods are very similar. So I hope that using the hints above, you'll be able to solve this problem and explain it to your students. Thank you so much for attending this lecture.